one of the neat things going on in South America is young people are trying to change Spanish from being just masculine and feminine. They're trying to. Have you heard about this? They're adding what they hope to create will be a neuter to take some of the patriarchal nature of the language away, and the kind of the male-female kind of nature of it away. Kind of interesting. I suspect that one of the reasons in English-speaking societies the movement for feminism has been more successful is because in English almost everything is neuter, and the only things that are male or female are actual males and females, except a few things like ships and odd things like that. So that's kind of interesting. Now, this is kind of a very modern issue for us, but at the same time, when we're using this issue to look back at what the Greeks are doing, and they're creating ideas, might have been the first time that we've got abstract ideas. We're trying to figure out what they are. They realize that they can't be the physical things, so I can't say, this is battery, this is a battery. That's not what batteries are, is what this is. This is just an exemplar, or an example, right? The Greeks invented that, actually. But the problem was, where are they? And they're, of course, arguing that they exist eternally, unchanging, so they can't be here in the material world. So what structures our material world are the ideas, but they're not here. They're no place, because if they were in a place, of course, they would be matter. Right? So let me move on. So with the Phaedo, you cannot kill the soul because it's just like one of those ideas. It can't be material. So our souls are eternal. And I'm not sure where, I know the Egyptians thought about this because, for example, the pharaoh has a test. If the pharaoh has been a good pharaoh and his soul is lighter than a feather, at his death, his soul can go on into whatever the next life is, right? Patrick.
So maybe I misread, but I felt like reading through it, Socrates was trying to say, if I am in fact guilty, then they have given a just punishment, whereas if I am innocent, then I am free of their toils being an innocent man, and I will be rewarded in an afterlife. Is that inaccurate, or I guess what was Socrates' message with his trial and death?
Yeah. Well, he didn't want to die, but he doesn't flee, even though in the Crito he's given that opportunity. But instead, he apparently comes up with an explanation of why he's comfortable with the idea of dying. And we get the sense that the soul is going to persist even though the body is going to die. And he's expecting that life after the body dies for his soul to be a good one. There's kind of some arguments about, that everybody that as they die, they kind of approach a point where they either go to the left or to the right. So there's like a decision point, So I'm not sure that you would say that the one is hell and the other is heaven. I think instead that Socrates has the idea that he's going to be happily discoursing with other dead Greeks, including the real famous ones like Homer, so that he's going to be able to enjoy that future life. His soul is going to be in a better condition than now. Very much like we often, when someone dies, we say, I'm sure that they're in a better place now. Right? And you think, where did that come from? Right? That's not Egyptian, because the only ones that go to some other place are the pharaohs, as far as I can tell. Right? Everyone else is basically still serving them somehow. If they're, and I get the same feeling that was the case in funerary practices in China for the emperor. The emperor, gets all these rows of terracotta soldiers that you've seen them, right, are molded on the features of actual individuals, right? Because each one is different, right? So everyone else is basically helping that individual on into the next life, but it's not like they all get a next life. It just doesn't seem like there's that much thought in it, right? So it's a good question, though. What exactly? Now, and the other problem, of course, is this Plato writing this dialogue using Plato's ideas, or was it really Socrates' point of view? We'll never know.
That was my other thought. Is in the beginning, Socrates comes off as very humble. I'm not that smart. I don't know why you people think I'm smart, but I guess if I'm smart, listen to me. And then it seems like later on, he's
got all the answers.
boastful that I am smart. Whether or not that's an acceptance of what people tell him, or a hidden agenda.
So that's where we're moving from the early dialogues into the middle dialogues, where it seems like the character is what Plato's still using in the dialogues, but it doesn't seem to fit the person that we know from the early dialogues. And one of the more important ones, of course, is the Republic. So if we go and we look at the big one, there's two that are big: the Republic and the Symposium, and the Laws. So I should really say there's three that are big books all by themselves. All the rest are basically the kind you could read in a night, kind of like a short dialogue. I should have talked about the Meno as well. Meno means unchanging, and the interesting thing about the Meno is that he uses a slave boy as an example who speaks Greek. He brings him over, and he basically asks the boy questions, and the boy solves the Pythagorean theorem without having ever studied math. Socrates uses this as an example to show that the boy actually knew the Pythagorean theorem, even though he had never studied math. And he does lead him to it, but of course what leads him to it are the specific questions. What's the half of this, right? Oh, here, right? And so on. So the boy naturally kind of answers these questions. And what Socrates, Plato, is showing with this intentionally, right, is that all of the ideas are already there, and all we have to do is ask ourselves the right questions, and we basically can come up with. And part of this is of course, the theory of the ideas, is that these ideas are what structure the universe, and our soul is connected to that. And if we free the soul enough to think about the structure of the universe, we get it. We're connected to it, right? So we have to basically allow ourselves to be rational. By the way, I'm not arguing that Plato is really giving us an excellent philosophy here. There's lots of things wrong with this. And if you don't see the writing on the wall, as soon as Aristotle comes along, he's going to trash pretty much this whole, philosophy, right? It doesn't go away, though, as you'll see, right? But so The Meno is a dialogue that says things are unchanging. Specifically, virtue is unchanging. And so a goal of that process is to show that a person's character is already there from birth. So it's not something that can be taught. I can't really change whether you're virtuous or not. You are going to have a personal psychological character. Your suke, by the way, is your soul. It's kind of an interesting, I didn't mention that, but where we say psychology, the study of the soul, is literally what we're saying when we say psychology. Right? Suke is soul, but it's also breath. So if you're breathing, your soul is still there. Right? So another one, the Republic, which in Greek is, begins politeia, right? Politeia, so like, it's just the Greek word for republic, right? Politeia. But republic is the Latinized version of it, res publica, or the public thing. In the Republic, the key concept that's being examined is justice. It's a big one, though, so that there's multiple books, as you can see, and as it goes through them, the subject gets laid out in a lot of different ways. First, it's everybody's all coming together, then they start picking a topic to talk about, and they're naturally led to the topic of justice. And when they ask what is justice, they go through this specific set of examples. And we get first the interest of the stronger. So one group will basically argue that it's basically might makes right, is the interest of the stronger. It's not just that. It's not like the might will decide at the moment what's right. It's what the mighty think is right is what they impose on everyone, right? So might makes right is one way of thinking of it. The interest of the stronger, IS, is one way of remembering that. Well, they discover that there's problems with this. And one of the problems is a famous story, and that is the story of the Ring of Gyges, which is, I think, a famous story even apart from the Republic and the Greeks. The Ring of Gyges, everybody gets a ring of power. Lord of the Rings has one. What other? There's other ones, right? All sorts of rings of power and so on. But the Ring of Gyges, this is a ring that Gyges finds, and when he puts it on, he's invisible. Who'd have thunk it, right? And once he has this ring and he puts it on, he can go and do whatever he wants because no one knows he's there. So he kills the king and takes all of his wealth and gets. So he basically uses it to take over everything. But that ends up being a problem because, of course, the whole society collapses as a result of this. So it turns out that the interest of the stronger is not the ideal form of justice. It leads to other conflicts that mean that you can't just have the rule of the strongest. Some examples. The next example that someone comes up with is true justice is tell the truth and pay your debts. TTPD. Back when I was in school, Professor Claghorn had us all chant, IS, TTPD, so I still remember that. TTPD, tell the truth and pay your debts. This sounds good until you, of course, come up with counterexamples, and the famous counterexample in that situation is the white lie, and that's the updated a little bit. You go to the bar with your friend, and he gives you his keys, and he says, "If I get drunk, don't let me drive home." Of course, he gets drunk, and he wants his keys back. And now you're in a situation where you know that the best thing for your friend is not to give him the keys back, because then he's going to, have an accident, etc. So you lie to him for his own benefit. So-called white lie, right? So, tell the truth, pay your debts is not universal. That can't be justice. So the next one is give to each his own. Give to each his own. Geho, actually. So ISTTPD, Geho. Sorry, it's still in my head. GEHO. Give to each his own. The idea here is that if we figure out what each person deserves, and we structure our society so that each person gets what they deserve, and not like you're a bad person so you get hell. It's instead, this person really likes stuff, so he ought to be in a situation where he can have lots of stuff. This person really likes social honors, so he should be in a position where he gets lots of social honors. This person really likes knowledge, so she really ought to be just given the opportunity to learn and learn and learn and learn and not have to worry about anything. So that's what she deserves. We should give her that kind of life, right? So how do we structure our society so that everybody gets what they deserve? And keep in mind that everybody deserves a specific type of life, because in psychology we've already learned that virtue can't be changed, and virtue is based on your psychology, right? What kind of person you are from birth, right? So how do we find out who gets what? Well, we put everybody into a school as soon as they're old enough to be taken away from their parents. Take everybody out of school. Take everyone away from their parents. Put them in a school where the teachers don't even know whose kids they are, because the teacher's job is to treat all the children exactly the same. Right? By the way, Plato never actually established this kind of republic. This is just in the book. Right? So it's not. There were a couple of times where he tried to set it up, but really he was just an oddity that they wanted around for discussions, but they weren't actually interested in setting up his idea of a republic. So it's kind of interesting. He never actually got it started. But so you take the kids away, put them in a school, and the idea he has is that as they age, their natural inclinations are going to come out, because everybody has their natural character, right? And the kinds of people that really like stuff are going to want to make stuff and have stuff. So once we discover who these are, that's where they stay. The next group that are not really just interested in stuff, we all need stuff, but those that want other things can go on into the military. And that's where they offer and risk their lives in service to the community by fighting the enemy. Right? And we reward them with honors, right? Medals and stuff. Right? That's what they really like, right? And then of those that get to like around 50 and really are interested in learning everything, those are the ones that we let then become philosophers. This is where you get the idea of the philosopher king, though, because this is the aristocracy in the society that should rule. But they're not getting rewarded for this. They're just being maintained. So that normally they would be like living in barracks, that kind of thing. So they're supported by the rest of the society. But the only ones that really get a lot of the wealth and pleasure from things would be the lowest group, that are the ones who like stuff. They're the ones that like stuff, they get stuff, right? The social rewards go to those that like social rewards, and the pleasure of just learning for the sake of knowing go to those that are interested in that. So you end up with this triangle. Shouldn't call it a triangle, or pyramid, I guess. I've got to watch because there's other things that that's weird. I'm getting all sorts of weird. Here we go. I'll just leave it like that. But you can see, so here's the masses down here. You don't have to make it that big. And here's the group that become the police.